Have you ever felt like you're living a life that isn't truly yours? All that which we do not confront in our psyche, we end up meeting as fate. Carl Jung. Most people don't realize it, but there are almost invisible signals indicating that you're drifting away from yourself. And these signals don't scream, they whisper. They show up as unexplained fatigue, impulsive decisions, repetitive relationship patterns, and nights when sleep simply won't come. They're like silent cracks in an apparently solid wall. If you do nothing about them, these small fissures expand until your inner structure collapses. Often what we label bad luck, a rough patch, or problems with others, are actually symptoms of something unresolved within us. Jung taught us that what we avoid inside ourselves projects outward into the world, and the more we avoid facing these parts, the more they quietly shape our behaviors. The person who lives to please others, always saying yes when they really mean no, often believes they're being generous. But many times they're just wearing a mask, a persona so well constructed that even they have forgotten who they truly are. That isn't kindness, it's disguised self-abandonment. Perhaps you sense that something isn't right but don't know what it is, a persistent discomfort, as if you're always a step away from yourself. You might try to fill this void with distractions, work, social media, people, yet deep down, you know you're running from something, and what you're avoiding may be precisely what could set you free. Throughout life, we've been taught to hide our shadows, to never show weakness, to avoid silence. But everything that isn't looked at grows, and it grows in silence. Unexpressed anger turns into chronic tension, swallowed sadness becomes apathy, repressed desires leak out through impulsive choices. Nothing disappears simply because it's ignored. As Jung said, the unconscious is not merely passive, it influences us more strongly than we imagine. There are clear signs that you're moving away from your true nature. Some are obvious, others are camouflaged by behaviors society even values, being productive, being likable, being resilient. But if these behaviors stem from fear or disconnection, they cease to be virtues and become prisons. Here's something important. These signals are not failures. They are invitations. Invitations to stop, breathe, and listen. Because the soul speaks, but it whispers. And to hear it, you need inner silence. If something so far has touched you, if some part has resonated like an unnamed truth, it might be worth continuing. Recognizing a pattern is already the beginning of transformation. The simple act of attentive observation already breaks the cycle of repetition. Maybe you're tired of going in circles. Maybe you're ready to listen to what lies hidden behind the symptoms. This isn't a quick journey, nor always comfortable, but it's profoundly liberating. If this makes sense to you, follow this journey with me. Not because I have all the answers, but because the right questions can change the course of your life. Now take a deep breath. Imagine you're opening an inner door, a door you may have kept locked for a long time. On the other side, there are no monsters. There are parts of you waiting to be heard. You deserve that listening. If this spoke to you, consider following so you won't miss upcoming content. Sometimes a single idea can open a new perception and completely change how you relate to life. You got used to pleasing, to saying yes when everything inside you screams no, to staying calm while twisting inside, to shaping your words, your actions, even your gestures to fit in. And maybe you've done it since childhood because you learned love comes with conditions. Affection came tethered to performance. To be accepted, you had to adapt. This is the territory of the persona, the social mask we all wear to survive in community. But when it becomes too rigid, it stops protecting and starts imprisoning. Jung said, the persona is the individual's adaptation system to society, but it is by no means its essence. And the problem begins when we forget that. Overpleasing isn't generosity. It's fear of rejection disguised as virtue, and behind it lies a wound, the belief that as you are, you're not enough. That showing too much vulnerability, intensity, strangeness will be enough to lose the love you've earned. So you control. You press, you edit, you suppress. The price, a silent burnout. Unbalanced relationships, a constant feeling of betraying yourself, and even surrounded by people, a profound loneliness, because no one knows who you really are. And how could they? You've forgotten too. Perhaps you're seen as someone good, someone easy to get along with. But inside, anger grows. exhaustion tightens, and authenticity disappears. Over the long term, this destroys not only relationships, but also your emotional health. Nothing is more draining than living as a character all the time. This doesn't mean abandoning others. It means, finally, not abandoning yourself. What would happen if, just for one day, you allowed yourself to say what you really think, to set boundaries, to express yourself without trying to be understood, approved, or validated? What fear arises there? Notice this. The more you feel you need to please, the farther you are from your truth. If this description feels familiar, observe how it impacts your choices. Which desires have you shelved just to maintain the image of someone easy? How many no's have you swallowed to avoid disappointing? Breathe into that. You learned that feeling anger was wrong, that showing sadness was a sign of weakness, that you had to be positive, resilient, productive. So you swallowed anger, you disguised frustration, you pretended it didn't hurt. You became an expert in hiding what you felt, even from yourself. But what is repressed doesn't vanish. It changes form. Anger becomes constant irritability. Sadness transforms into fatigue. Guilt turns into paralyzing self-demand. And the body, faithful messenger of the soul, begins to carry the weight of what the mind refused to feel. Jung called this rejected content the shadow. The shadow is everything you don't want to see in yourself. Impulses, desires, fears, feelings that don't match the image you've built of who you should be. But ignoring them doesn't make them harmless. On the contrary, the more unconscious they are, the more powerful they become. The shadow isn't evil, it's human, but when you try to silence it, it manifests however it can, through disproportionate outbursts, impulsive decisions, words that come before thought. In moments when you ask yourself, why did I do that? Why did I act like that? Repressing negative emotions is like putting a lid on a pressure cooker. From the outside, everything seems calm. Inside, there's boiling. And the problem isn't the pot. It's what happens when it has no way to release steam. Feeling is not failing. It's acknowledging that life pulses within you. It's becoming whole. Courage isn't in denying what you feel. It's in welcoming it. It's sitting with discomfort and asking, what are you trying to show me? Unresolved emotions don't die, they hide. And sooner or later they return, in dreams, in physical pains, in self-sabotaging behaviors, in fear of intimacy, in everything that seems inexplicable but is simply forgotten. How many times have you said, I'm fine, and when you weren't? How many times have you smiled when you longed to cry? How many times did you swallow anger and call it maturity? There's immense strength in acknowledging your own pain, because by doing that you reconnect with your wholeness, and only those who allow themselves to feel can truly transform. Observe this in yourself. Don't judge, just observe. That alone is an act of lucidity. If this resonates with you, and noticing these patterns helps you see yourself more clearly, consider following. There are contents that awaken, and when the mind awakens, it never returns to its former state. You observe others, and without realizing, begin judging them, how they talk, what they wear, what they believe. Sometimes it's automatic, almost imperceptible, a mental critique here, an irritation there, a silent disdain somewhere. And deep down, you convince yourself you're just seeing the obvious. But what if that judgment says more about you than about them? Jung warned, what annoys us most in others is often a reflection of what's unresolved within us. We call it projection, one of the psyche's most common and invisible mechanisms. You're not seeing the other as they truly are. You're seeing your own shadow disguised in someone else's skin. The person you label arrogant may simply express a confidence you don't allow yourself. The one you call needy might just be asking for what you learned never to ask. What irritates you in others is often what you reject in yourself. That's why it hurts so much. Projection is like a dirty mirror. You try to see the other, but you see your own distorted traits. And the more we deny our shadows, the more susceptible we become to this mechanism. Whoever doesn't know their own emotions ends up being dominated by them through the actions of others. It's difficult to admit, because it demands honesty. It requires stopping blaming the outside world and starting to take responsibility for what pulses inside. But this shift is liberating, because when you recognize a projection, you reclaim a lost part of yourself. You don't have to like everyone, but you do need to notice why certain people trigger such intense reactions, why specific attitudes knock you off balance, why particular traits irritate you so much, even if they pose no real threat. What you judge most might be exactly what you need to integrate. Reflect. Who annoys you today? And what, exactly, in that person touches you so deeply? Are you looking outward or inward? Self-knowledge begins the moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking at your own hand. You wake up with a pounding heart, or maybe it starts midday for no clear reason. Everything seems under control, but inside something is restless. You try ignoring it, rationalizing, distracting yourself, but the anxiety remains, silent and insistent, as if something is out of place, but you don't know what. Jung said anxiety is the way the psyche tries to alert us that something repressed, something forgotten, something diverted from our truth needs attention. It's the soul attempting to speak to you and being ignored. When you disconnect from the unconscious, it begins to manifest through the body. It's as if, not heard in words, it screams through symptoms. Anxiety is often just the surface symptom of a deeper internal conflict. The distance between who you are and who you're trying to be. Between what you feel and what you believe you should feel. Between what you desire and what you think you must desire. This internal tension accumulates and overflows. The body senses what the mind refuses to face. It's not just about relaxing or slowing down. It's about listening, stopping and asking sincerely, what inside me is being suffocated? Anxiety can also arise when we're on the brink of growth, when old parts of the personality are dying and new ones are emerging. It's the discomfort of crossing the unknown, like the caterpillar dissolving inside the chrysalis before becoming a butterfly. It's a fertile but frightening chaos. How many times have you tried to solve your anxiety by merely combating the symptom without asking where it comes from? How many times did you seek immediate relief without listening to what it wanted to tell you? What if your anxiety isn't an enemy, but a messenger? Pay attention to the messages your body is trying to deliver, because when the soul isn't heard, it whispers through the heart, the breath, the stomach, and it won't stop until you return to yourself. Some relationships seem to repeat under new masks. Names change, faces change, scenarios change, but the script remains the same. The distance that arises after intensity, the abandonment after devotion, control disguised as care, neediness disguised as passion. No matter how much your mind says, this time will be different, something deep in the soul guides you back to the same place. Jung explained this when he spoke of animus and anima, the unconscious figures representing within us our inner masculine and feminine. These images form in childhood, influenced by our relationship with our parents and the emotional environment in which we grew up. And when these images are wounded, we unconsciously seek partners who activate that old drama, hoping finally to resolve it. But the opposite happens. We attract patterns, not people. We repeat dynamics expecting a different outcome, unaware that we're dancing with the same inner forces as always. It's not bad luck, it's psyche. It's the soul attempting integration through another. Relationships are mirrors, but not always pleasant ones. They show parts of us we don't want to see, and that's why they hurt so much. Every conflict, every abandonment, every overly intense closeness carries clues about what's disorganized within. Breaking the cycle begins with a question. What does this relationship awaken in me that isn't new, but ancient? What pattern repeats? Which part of me is trying to resolve itself through another? Until you look inward, the other continues to be the stage for your unresolved story. Silence. No notifications, no messages, no sounds. For many, this is unbearable. The impulse is immediate. Grab the phone, turn on the TV, run off in search of distraction. Solitude is mistaken for abandonment, but in reality, it's just the mirror where parts of you you've avoided appear. The difficulty of being alone isn't just about boredom or having nothing to do. It's above all a sign that your connection to your inner world is compromised. Jung said, "Those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken." But awakening demands courage. Staying in silence is dangerous for those who fear what they might find. In silence, questions you've pushed under the rug emerge. What do I truly want? Why am I living this life? What am I avoiding at all costs? The constant need for stimulation is an escape. Escape from the unconscious, from inner voices, from accumulated feelings. But the more you flee, the more you get lost. Because if your relationship with others is important, your relationship with yourself is essential. The soul needs solitude, just as the body needs rest. It's in this space that the psyche's deep content emerges. Intuitions, images, forgotten memories, muffled truths. Only there do you begin to distinguish real desires from conditioning. Only there do you perceive who you are without the gaze of another shaping you. The person who can't be alone is always a hostage. Hostage to relationships, distractions, work, anything that fills the existential hole that only one's own presence can hold. It's not about isolating yourself from the world, but about returning home, to your own interior, learning again to inhabit your own body, your own silence, your own soul. When was the last time you were in total silence and didn't try to escape? Some have a good job, friends, a structured routine, even moments of leisure. From the outside, everything looks fine, but inside something's gone dark, a hard-to-name absence, a void that isn't hunger, isn't sleep, isn't tiredness. It's as if life itself lacks soul. This is one of the deepest and most ignored signs that the process of individuation, as Jung called it, has been interrupted. To individuate is to become who you truly are, not who the world wanted you to be. When you live life only from the outside in, following others' roles, goals, and expectations, this void settles in. And no matter how much you achieve, it always feels insufficient, wrong, distant. Jung saw this constantly in his patients. Successful, functional, intelligent people, but disconnected. And he said that lack of meaning afflicts modern man more than anything else. The void is not weakness, it's a calling. When you feel that something's missing, perhaps what's missing is you, your genuine choices, your values, your voice, your essence suffocated by years of trying to fit in. Often the entire system needs re-evaluation. It's not enough to change your environment, partner, or job. You need a shift in axis, a reconnection with what truly moves you, with what touches you for no apparent reason, but makes sense on a deeper level. The void has value. It shows that the soul no longer accepts living on autopilot, that the inherited script no longer serves, that old answers no longer suffice. It's the beginning of the search for what's real, for what's yours, for what resonates with your nature. Life only fills up when you stop seeking meaning in the wrong place. During the night, images emerge, fragmented, symbolic, sometimes confusing. Dreams that seem absurd, others that linger for days. Most people ignore them, calling them nonsense, irrelevant, just random things. But for Jung, dreams were direct messages from the unconscious, perhaps the purest way the psyche communicates with consciousness. Refusing to listen to your own dreams is like receiving letters from your soul and never opening them. You continue living with important questions while the answers lie whispered between images and symbols. Dreams are compensatory. They show what's unbalanced in consciousness. If you're living too much by reason, they bring emotion. If you're stuck in rigid patterns, they present creative chaos. If you're denying something essential, they symbolize what's been buried. Some say, but I don't even dream. In truth, you do. You just forget, because a long time ago you learned to devalue this inner universe. Modern mind has distanced itself from the symbolic, the intuitive, the mysterious. But the soul keeps producing images, and the more you open to them, the more they reveal. Jung said analyzing dreams is like following the work of an internal artist, someone who, night after night, tries to guide you toward wholeness, not with logical words, but with living metaphors. It's the unconscious's effort to rebalance you. You can start with simple gestures. Upon waking, jot down fragments. Ask yourself what the dream is trying to show. Look at it as if it were a mirror, because that's exactly what it is. What have you dreamed in recent nights? And what did you ignore? How many messages did you miss because you thought it was just a dream? The soul speaks at night. The problem isn't that the dream is strange. It's that you're no longer used to listening. Absolute certainties are tempting. They give security, stability, a ground beneath your feet. You say, I am this way, life is like this will never change. And for a while this system works. But as years pass, that ground begins to turn into a prison. Attachment to rigid beliefs is a defense against the unknown, against life's natural instability. But what's too static becomes morbid. Jung said that the ego that refuses to transform ends up crushed by the very forces it tried to control. Psychic life is dynamic. It demands movement, renewal, flexibility. And every time you cling too tightly to an idea of yourself, you prevent new possibilities from emerging. Beliefs are tools, but when they become identity, they become armor. And what was meant to help you live ends up protecting you from life itself. I am rational, someone says, and shuts the door on intuition. I am shy, and limits themselves in any new situation. I am strong, and never allows themselves to ask for help. These statements seem harmless, but they shape destinies. They narrow the world. They reduce the psyche to a single mode of being when the soul is multiple, mutable, alive. True psychological growth requires dying to certain ideas, dying to the old self, to certainties that no longer serve. And that hurts because the ego fights to survive. But it's that struggle that precedes transformation, like a snake needing to shed its skin, even though it costs a piece of itself. Every belief you defend too intensely hides a fear of change, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. That fear needs to be seen, not disguised as conviction. What do you defend with rigidity? What do you refuse to review? And what if that solid identity is precisely what prevents you from growing? Letting go isn't losing yourself. It's making space for something more authentic to emerge. You live with the impression that something is broken, a vague but persistent sense of inadequacy. No matter how hard you try, it always feels insufficient. What you feel is too much. What you do is too little. You carry the weight of being wrong, even when no one says it explicitly. A silent anguish that may have accompanied you since childhood and hides itself in perfectionism, chronic guilt, or the need for control. Jung understood this sensation as a calling from the soul, not a flaw, but a sign that something essential has been forgotten, unlived, unintegrated. The psyche reacts when parts of the self are repressed or distorted to fit an idealized image. When what you are must be sacrificed to meet external demands, a form of self-abandonment sets in, and the body feels it, the mind bears it, the soul screams. That feeling of something is wrong with me doesn't arise out of nowhere. It springs from a profound disconnection with the center of being. Jung called this the loss of the self, the psychic core that sustains your inner truth. The farther you stray from it, the stronger that feeling grows. And trying to compensate with external achievements, status, or praise only deepens the fracture. This must be faced with courage, asking, where did this idea that I am wrong come from? Who made me believe that? Which part of me was silenced for being too much? The soul asks for reconciliation, not correction. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to remember who you are. This sense of inadequacy can be the beginning of awakening, a discomfort that shouldn't be quickly cured, but deeply listened to. It points to exiled parts of yourself now wanting to return. It's the soul's most intimate invitation, the call to come home. You are not defective. You're simply disconnected from your wholeness, and the truth is, this happens to almost everyone at some point in life. Yet few have the courage to stop and listen to this discomfort until the end. Along this path, discomfort becomes a map, and what today seems a problem may, in time, reveal itself as a key. It says something inside you is ready to snap out of autopilot, to stop merely surviving, because the signals were there, silent, uncomfortable, but real, the exhausted persona of pleasing, the rejected, suffocated shadow, the projections that confuse the external world with internal conflicts, the unrelenting anxiety, the painful repetitions, fear of silence, the void that no achievement fills, the contempt for unconscious messages, the certainties turned prisons, and finally, that persistent feeling of being out of place within your own life. These aren't mistakes. They're invitations. Invitations to descend into yourself, where resides the forgotten and most alive part of who you are. Jung didn't propose a path to perfection. He proposed a path to wholeness, and that only becomes possible when we stop fleeing from pain and start listening to it. This journey has no shortcuts, but it offers rewards no external world can provide. peace with who you are, intimacy with your own truth, strength born of authenticity, and a sense that for the first time, you're exactly where you should be, inside yourself. Many ignore these signals their entire lives, but whoever chooses to see, even just a bit, opens a fissure for transformation. If this content awakened something in you, if any part touched an old wound or revealed a new truth, record it. Comment below. Which of these signals did you recognize most in yourself? Sometimes naming what we feel is already the beginning of healing. And if you wish to continue, this path of awareness and depth follow, not out of habit but by choice, because content like this isn't entertainment, it's memory, it's reminders of something your soul already knew, but you may have forgotten. This is what it's about, remembering who you are before the world told you who you should be.